Hi friends, welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. I'm Austin, and today's video is a speed build in Brindleton Bay. So this Brindleton Bay family home was a lot of fun to do, and it came together really quickly. I was actually kind of surprised. I finished the build the same day I recorded the voiceover, or I'm recording the voiceover, and all in all, I was really happy with how the build turned out. It is a single level home, which I haven't done a lot recently, so it was kind of nice. It was a nice change of pace, that's for sure. And the layout has the two bedrooms on the left side, and then the living and kitchen area on the right side, then like a pretty narrow entrance area in the front. And I was lucky enough to be able to fit two bathrooms in the house, and also I was also able to fit two bedrooms and a pretty reasonably sized kitchen and living room. The dining room area is a little small, and I could have done it a little differently, but I really wanted to kind of make the layout of the house the way it was, and the dining room kind of got pushed aside because of it. But I still think it's a pretty decent dining room. It has enough space for the whole family, since the one bedroom in this house does have two twin beds. I kind of envisioned it as a house for a young kind of family, so maybe young adult parents with children, with young children, maybe even a toddler. You would have to change a bed out if it was a toddler, but it's a very good house, I think, and it's a house I think your Sims could grow in. It's not a starter house, but it's also not terribly expensive. It's only 70,000 simoleons, which in comparison to some of the other houses I've done is actually relatively cheap. In the past I've done houses as expensive as 1,000,000 simoleons, and this is definitely not one of those, so that's pretty nice. Also, I want to apologize if there's any popping in the microphone. I am currently monitoring the sound, and I might have heard a couple pops or two, so hopefully I remember to fix it before I put the voiceover in the video. But if I forget, then I just want to apologize. So things have been good here. I've been not going outside as one should, and I'm kind of getting used to it at this point. I'm still a little bit stir crazy, but I'm not going to let that take away from the social distancing, and so I'm going to stay inside. And if an emergency happens and I have to go out and get something, then I will. But for right now, I am reasonably prepared. I'm not hoarding anything. I really hate how there are people out there that the whole point of this was of preparation was to make sure you get what you need and nothing more. And there were people out there that were taking excessive things and making it harmful for everybody else. So I'm very disappointed in those sorts of people, and hopefully in the future, when all this gets resolved, people will not only feel silly for doing what they did, and they'll also regret it. I really, I have faith in people that they will regret the situation. Not that it helps, but I know there are a lot of people right now that are in need of certain necessities, and there's also a fear that because we weren't able to maybe get what we needed, that we may run out. But it's kind of a crazy time to be in, where the main topic of conversation is toilet paper. But, it's kind of a crazy world we're in right now, and I really can't wait till all this gets resolved and the world returns to normal. But once again, I don't want to get too bogged down by this whole conversation. I do want to take away from it and kind of forget about it for maybe 10 minutes or whatever. So that's hopefully the last I will talk about it in the near future, unless something changes, and then I will try to talk about it. But until then, I'm not going to touch it. So I've been playing Animal Crossing recently, and that's been a lot of fun. I really love that game. I remember when I was a little kid playing the one on the GameCube. I think it might have been the first North American one. I'm not 100% sure, but it was so much fun. And I remember I was a little kid, and I would come home from school, I would turn on my GameCube, and I would just immediately just start playing and running around the world and talking to all the cool animals and stuff. And it was like the perfect game for a kid, but it's not necessarily a kid's game only. I think it's just a great kind of time waster, but not in a negative aspect. Like, it really passes the time really well, and it's such a fun game. I really kind of want to go back and play the old game though, because I was one of the reasons why I wasn't sure if I was gonna get the new game is because part of me was nervous that, like, the positive memories I had of the game would, and you had like made me forget like all my issues with it, because I mean the game's not perfect and there are things I wish were changed, but I was just afraid that playing a new game would make those issues come to light more, and so far not really. There are still some problems I have with the game, but it's just so much fun to play, and it really reminds me of being a kid again, and it was a lot of fun with that game. I used to play the GameCube a lot as a kid. It didn't come out too early in my childhood. I was not a teenager yet, but I was also not like a little kid. So it was in that like in-between phase where like school homework was still relatively easy, so I could finish it pretty quickly and begin playing games. But yeah, like the GameCube had some of my favorite games of the time. Animal Crossing comes to mind, and also it had Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life, which I've talked about maybe in the past. Like, Harvest Moon games were probably my favorite as a little kid, or as a kid. Harvest Moon 64 was my favorite game on the Nintendo 64, which is kind of something funny to say because like Nintendo 64 had some of the greatest games of all time, but like Harvest Moon 64 was my favorite, and it's aged pretty well from what I've seen, but it's also, lacking in a lot of things that later games, either, in the same series or, games that were kind of inspired by it, have. And so, I couldn't really go back and play that game, but I really enjoyed playing it as a kid. And then the GameCube version somehow became my favorite. I didn't think it was possible because Harvest Moon 64 was such a good game, but A Wonderful Life was a fantastic game. My biggest issue was I had a copy that had an error, and you'd get to a certain point in the game and the game would just crash. And apparently it was in some copies of the game, and they never released a patch because this was like prior to internet patches and stuff. But apparently there was something wrong with some copies of the game where you would reach like chapter 4 or something like that. It was like after you started a family and all this stuff, and the game would not work. And I remember the first time I played it, I got to that point and I tried reloading my save like 100 times, not even an exaggeration. That's how much I love the game, and nothing ever fixed it. And then so I did what any bored child would do, and I just started over from scratch, got to the same point, and it happened again. And then I turned the game off and never touched it again because later looking it up, I discovered that was an issue. I don't believe it was an issue with every copy of the game, but it was an issue with some copies of the game, and so that was rather unfortunate. But it's still one of my favorite games on the GameCube. I really wish I was able to finish it. I do know that a remastered edition is on the PS4, and I never played it. I mentioned in an earlier video that I have access to a PS4, but I don't have one, so maybe one of these days I will play it. I just have to borrow a PS4, which is pretty easy for me to do, so maybe one day after all this quarantine stuff is done, then maybe I will finally do that, play Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life. So back to the house. I know I've kind of rambled on for about 5 minutes, but this house came together really easily. This build only took me about an hour and 15 minutes. The room I'm probably least happy with is the master bedroom. I think overall it came together pretty well. It's not a massive room, but it really ran into one of my biggest annoyances with The Sims 4, at least, is the lack of continuity with wood tones. And I know I used furniture from different packs, but like the furniture is so close in like wood tones that like there really should just be like universal, maybe like 6 colors. And I really wish they did that, because even some of the items are from the same pack don't even have the same wood swatch tones, and it really is annoying, and I really wish they would do something about it, but at this point I doubt it. Hopefully The Sims 5 will fix that and whenever it comes out in the future. But I'm sort of becoming a pessimist, and maybe it's something we're just gonna have to get used to from now on. But you know, the lack of fixes is not me being a pessimist. But yeah, so the master bedroom or bathroom, you know, is rather small. Like every room in this house is relatively small, but I still think it works out well, and I'm really happy with how it looks. But yeah, you know, the bathrooms are not the best. I probably could have cut them out of the build, but the video wasn't too long as is. I think it's a little over 10 minutes. Oh wow, maybe I could have cut out about a minute more. Oh well. Sorry about that. Maybe in the future I'll cut out bathroom builds, or like the bathroom portion, more often in my build, just because, you know, a lot of bathrooms look the same. It's one of the reasons why I like doing room builds for bathrooms, is because like it's the only thing you're working on, so you have no excuse not to make it look special or make it look unique, and that's one of the reasons why I like it. So maybe I'll do that in the future, but until then, maybe I'll just cut out the bathroom builds. So I wasn't able to fit a pool in the backyard. It just didn't fit. So I added some, you know, kids accessories, because this house is meant for young children, or you know, for young children to be in it, not to own it. So you know, I wanted the swing set, but I also want some things for smaller children, especially because I just bought the toddler stuff pack recently. It was on sale a while back, and I got it for, you know, $5 or whatever. And I really haven't used any of the objects. I was gonna put the ball pit in the backyard, and then that just didn't feel right, so I ended up not. But you know, I really want to use that pack more often, because it was a pack that interested me, just not for, you know, $10. But you know, it still was an interesting pack, and I am happy that I bought it. I just need to use some of the items a little more often here and there. So anyways, as you can see, screenshots are on the screen. This house was a lot of fun to do. I'm really happy with doing the single level home. I'm not a huge fan of most of my single level homes, because they're very hard to get right, but this one I'm really happy with. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to hit the like button, and if you are new to the channel and you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and clicking the bell. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.